Welcome. Oh, sorry, we're just having some technical difficulties.
Let's keep talking.
Don't mind us. We're just trying to fix the camera, everyone, for our live Q&A. Just give us a second. But while we work on that issue, we just want to let you know about some of the exciting deals. Do you want to talk about some of the stuff that's happening right now, Chris?
Right, okay. As we go into Christmas, what lots of people are doing is they're taking advantage of the free garden design. And what's interesting is that garden designs can cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and we've got them right now. We've got them where you put up a $50 or $100 deposit, depending on the size of the design, and we can design the front garden or the front and back garden, and or quite a large garden, and do it within a sort of a specified time period, and you get an original, wonderful design, and then you get that. If you spend over $500, if you've done the $100 design, you get that $100 off. So you get your garden loan, instead of paying $500, you get $400 for $400. So that makes it an absolutely free garden design when you buy your plants from us. And if you spend over $250, you get the $50 back. But what's interesting is I've been working really, really hard on the garden designs, because I've noticed that the demand, lots and lots of people seem to be staying home this summer, or taking on projects at home. Maybe they're going away as well, but they're certainly taking on projects at home, and with our free delivery and the free garden design, it's really keeping us very, very busy at the moment.
Yeah, really exciting.
Yeah.
We got Legumes commented saying that they loved the design process with you, Chris. So that's really awesome to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, a lot of people might think, well, because most of the garden designs cost $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000, they might actually think that the garden designs we do, being free, might be terrible. But in actual fact, if you look at the reviews, we get some fabulous reviews, and kind of like the garden designs that we do are interesting, because normally what a garden design happens is a guy comes around to your house, looks at everything, has a big chat with you, has a cup of tea, and then he goes home, and he comes back 3 or 4 weeks later and he unrolls this plan that he spent days on, and sometimes the people don't like it, but they paid thousands of dollars and they feel like they have to do it, and because whereas what we do is we use screens, we put all the plants up in front of the person, I do diagrams and things in front of the person, and it's a kind of like an on-the-spot thing where we interact with the person. Like, we say, look, I think you should put these yellow roses over there, and the lady will say, oh, I hate yellow, and you say, well, what if we put pink ones? Oh, I love pink. And so what happens is that's happening every minute. Like, they say, you do a curved garden bed, they say, no, I don't want an angular, and so whatever it is that I'll listen to the person, and I'll propose various things, and then it's very, very interactive, so that you end up with something that's I think possibly better than the more expensive garden design. So it costs you nothing, and you very often would get a better garden design, because it's very much, I always think that people have got the garden design sort of inside them, and what I do is I'm trying to reach in and find out what it is that they really want, and the colours and the feeling and the end product that they really want, and then I'll design something, and sometimes you get it wrong, so you say, well, let's do this, and they say, oh, it's not what I want at all, and you'll change it. And so rather than have somebody come back 3 weeks later and unroll something you don't really like, ours are very much on the spot, and a lot of people are very, very happy when they get to the end, even though it's only maybe a 45-minute process.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to do that, just hop over to our website and you can book a garden design there. We're going to jump right into the questions. We've got quite a few coming through. So I'm going to start it off with Katie's question. I brought Ficus topiary ball tree things for next to my front footpath. Are the roots invasive? I didn't think of this until now.
Okay, yes and no. Don Burke almost stopped people from selling ficus, and what he did was he showed this picture of a house in Queensland where they hadn't pruned their ficus standard for maybe 20 or 30 years, and it completely destroyed the front garden, the fences, everything was it was like one of those ruins that you see on TV, in the Amazon or somewhere like that, where there's somebody built something 1,000 years ago, and sort of roots and things went all over and completely destroyed it. But when you looked at this tree, it was, it was like 8 or 9 meters tall and 8 or 9 meters wide, had grown into an absolute monster and put out roots everywhere. But what's interesting about your ficus standard, if you were, say, to keep that ball 90 centimeters or a meter round, and the trunk will never get where this one that Don Burke showed, and he never really explained it properly in my opinion. He just said don't plant ficus, they're really dangerous. This is what, if you plant a ficus, it'll completely destroy your front yard, just as you see here. And what he left out is if you plant a ficus and leave it for 20 or 30 years and don't prune it, it will actually do that. But if you were to prune it into a nice round ball, the trunk never gets thick because trunks only fatten up to feed the ball, and the roots never go that big. What it is that as the tree gets bigger and bigger and bigger, the trunk gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the roots get longer and longer and fatter and go out everywhere. So prune your ficus standard, and I mean there's lots of people with 5 or 10 or 15 ficus standards in a row in their garden, and they don't have any problems at all because they prune them and look after them. But let it go for 10 or 20 years and you will have problems. So they are destructive, they can cause problems, but kept within a reasonable size, a reasonable thickness, a reasonable height, no problem at all.
Amazing. All right, next one is from Al. Where are you located?
We're in Campbellfield. Now Campbellfield is a sort of an industrial wasteland. Not too far from Tullamarine Airport. If I've got to go to the airport.
In Victoria, Australia.
Yeah, in Victoria, Australia. Yeah, and close and So Tullamarine Airport's sort of just outside of Melbourne. So Melbourne, Victoria, and we're in a sort of like a temperate climate, like you might find in southern France or near LA or something like that. We're in that type of climate. Actually, it's a very interesting climate because. The only climate I've seen that's really the same as what we are here is around Mexico City.
Interesting.
And what's interesting about this particular location is in our gardens we have the most enormous variety of plants, and we can grow alpine plants that come from, say, the Swedish highlands, and we can grow plants that come from right up in Finland and places like that. And we could also grow things from tropical jungles and equatorial regions because it doesn't get that hot and it doesn't get that cold and it doesn't get that wet and it doesn't get that dry. It's sort of a very, very much like Mexico City. So
very exciting.
Yeah, and I felt like when I was traveling around Mexico City looking at plants, I almost felt like I was at home.
Wow, that's a similarity I didn't think we would have with Mexico City. We'll move on to the next question, which is from Math. My bungalow palm tree I've planted 5 days ago are getting brown leaves.
Sunburn.
Sunburn. What can you do for it, or she?
Sunburn. Whip it out, put it back in the pot, and put it in the shade, and don't leave it there till autumn. And I noticed. I think when they come, I think sometimes you get really green, lush-looking ones. The growers up in Queensland grow them in deep shade, and so Melbourne sun is harsh, and so whipping them out in that Melbourne sun is a problem. You'd have to acclimatise them. But if you just waited till mid to late March before it went out in the hot sun, you wouldn't have any problems. And actually, that's an interesting thing. If you're buying a live Christmas tree this year, a lot of people put them inside for 4 or 5 weeks, and then on the hottest day in February, they think, wow, this thing would probably like a bit of sun. And it's been inside for 6 weeks, and so out it goes into 45 degree heat, and turns black. And what I used to do when I bought my live Christmas tree out in February, I would still bring it out in February like everyone else because you get sick of looking at it inside. And when I bought it out, I used to put it in the shade, and I would leave it in the shade till winter came.
Sorry, we know the camera's frozen. We're just working on it.
And then it would reacclimatise. So it's a great idea to, when things come out of deep shade or come out of indoors, you don't want to just put them straight out into really, really hot sun.
Yeah, no, makes sense. All right, we're just gonna go on to Kristen's question. Sorry about the visuals, guys. I hope the audio is still fine. All right, cool, we are back. Kristen would like to know, how often should I water my young gardenias and port wine magnolia over summer? They're only a couple months old and kept in part sun/shade.
If you've got beautiful, well-drained soil, and gardenias love well-drained soil, you can water them every second or third day, and give them a good soak every second or third day. If they're in sort of clay soil with poor drainage, you might be a bit more careful and water them not quite as often. Maybe every third or fourth day.
Yeah, amazing. All right, next question is, hold on, I just need to scroll up a little bit. Okay, it's from Grace. Are there any plants that would survive on my west-facing balcony that gets very hot and full sun?
Yeah, succulents, and a particular succulent is a jade plant. And I've got a jade plant that I've had in a pot for maybe 10 years now, and I was just looking at it the other day. It looks fabulous. But jade plants and succulents are great in that sort of situation, but you'll also find that if you want something a bit larger, a nicely pruned up olive, nicely pruned up ficus, and we have a compact ficus here called a Ficus Co, and that could be kept as quite a compact sort of thing and loves the really, really hot sun. And I think what else really loves hot sun?
We did that balcony not too long ago that got pretty hot sun.
Yeah. Ficus standards.
Nice, yeah.
We had Ficus standards.
Dichondra repens.
And we had succulents, various different succulents like blobs and chalk sticks. And we used dichondra. Silver dichondra is very good in the hot sun. And Boston ivy.
Oh yeah. It was a very beautiful garden. You should go definitely go check it out. If you go on our YouTube channel and I think maybe type in balcony garden or something like that, you should get those videos up. It's a really, really beautiful design using pots and many plants, few pots is the theory behind there, which you can listen all about on that video. All right, we'll move on to the next one, which is from Cherie. I have a potted garden and it's so beautiful. I only have vegetables planted in the, oh, okay. Sorry, I thought there was gonna be a question there, but that sounds lovely, Cherie. Unless there's another part to, okay, no, I think that was just it. All right, we'll move on to the next.
So what's Cherie doing? She's got a
potted garden and it's beautiful. She's only vegetables planted in the garden.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing to. I think vegetables arranged nicely can look really, really nice, and it's a matter of kind of not just putting them in rows and doing it boring. Like just kind of do it with a bit of flair. And really, vegetables can be quite attractive. So thanks for that. Yeah.
And it's also very practical and useful as well.
Yeah. Actually, I remember visiting a garden that Clive Blazy did, a veggie garden that Clive Blazy did at Diggers Seeds. And what was interesting about that was he had just the odd perennial, the odd nice flowery perennial, a few geraniums and a few little bits and pieces in there. And gee, that made a difference too. So don't be afraid to throw the odd. And some of your flowers, like your some of your flowers are actually quite good at repelling pests. Like your marigolds, for instance.
I quite like this next question. They're asking, when did you start being interested in plants, Chris?
I got interested as a child. I was brought up at Mount Dandenong, and Mount Dandenong was a sort of a. I think my dad bought there because it was the cheapest real estate available in Melbourne at the time. So Mount Dandenong very, very cheap, but he bought a house that came with 5 acres of flowers, and to pay the payments, he picked the flowers and sold them on his way to work, and sold flowers and things like that, and then started growing all different things. But what was interesting about Mount Dandenong was back in those days, there was very, very rich people that had big gardens, and they'd have a gardener, which would be one of our neighbours, and then there was people that grew plants and sold them, and there was people who grew berries and sold them, and people who grew potatoes and sold them. So everybody was growing something. So almost every sort of interaction involved growing something. And then I just noticed some different things that got me interested. Like we used to have a cocky, and when we threw his old seed out into the compost heap, we'd get sunflowers pop up, and I used to be amazed how fast they grow. And I loved watching the sunflowers grow in the compost heap. And my mum would grow a big box of different sorts of flowers. I used to love that. And then I remember I bought radish seeds one time, and radishes grow in about 6 weeks and that really got me interested. You know, sprinkling in some radish seed, and then, you know, 5 or 6 weeks later eating radishes, and which I didn't even eat radishes before then because they're sort of so hot and burny for a little child. And I might have been, when I grew my first lot of radishes, I was 6 or 7 years old. So I grew different things, and then when I was 7, I went door knocking and got myself a gardening job, and the lady there was sort of kind of magical. She had a 1 acre garden. She'd retired, and she had a 1 acre garden, a cottage garden, and she was a little bit eccentric. She talked to her plants, but what was funny, she didn't just say things to them, she'd threaten them to make them perform. And
I'd be a little bit worried if I was that plant too.
Like I remember one time we were walking through her main best lawn area. She had 4 or 5 different lawns, and we're walking through the main best lawn area, and there was a ginkgo there with a bit of moss on it that was only about my height. It might have only been about 1.5 meters then, and had a bit of moss and hadn't grown for years. And she stopped and she pointed her finger at it and she said, "Look, if you don't grow this year, Chris is going to dig you up and put you right at the back of the back paddock." And what was interesting is it nearly doubled in size that year, and that was my first education about talking to plants.
So if anyone here has a problem with the plant not growing, maybe try that method, and we'll and let us know if it works for you.
And I don't think that ginkgo ever grew again.
Oh my god, okay, we're gonna go on to the next question, which Ian would like to know, where's your tutu?
Oh, I've got it on, it's just that because of the table, it's invisible.
We've actually done like a lot of videos of the tutu because you guys are asking about it so much that we brought the tutu back. So just go scroll back on our feed and you will be sure to find a tutu video, Ian. Alright, next question is maidenhair creeper. Do you need to make a box shape for it to grow into a hedge or just one row?
What's
and
that?
how? So maidenhair creeper, do you need to make a box shape for it to grow into they're trying to grow a hedge out of the maidenhair creeper, or it's like, do you plant a row of it, and how far apart do you need to make the wires?
I would do a single row, and if I was in a hurry, I would plant 3 or 4 to the metre. But if I wanted to be very, very economical, what you could do is it will root as it goes along. So you could actually grow it up and then lay it down and make like a continuous strip on the ground, and then that would root all along and then grow right up and make a real wall of it quite cheaply. But I think if I was wanting to do it's amazingly fast growing. I've had customers grow 2 metre hedges in a year, and you've got to have some wire or something for it to grow on, but you know, with wire and everything there, a 2 metre hedge, nice and thick and bushy that you couldn't see. That particular customer, they got me to do a garden design for them, and they said that they wanted to sit out in their front yard and enjoy themselves, but they wanted to be private, and so I designed a garden, and to make a really, because it was only a tiny front yard, I got them to put up a wire fence, and we planted them all around, and we put 3 or 4 to the metre, and they all just grew straight up, and they had a thick green wall, and they could sit inside that. And it was, what was great, the wall was really, really thin. It was 3 or 4 inches wide, and they could sit inside, and they'd achieved their goal within 12 months. And for people who don't know about it, if you went to the zoo, for instance, maidenhair creeper is an Australian native. Its proper name is Muehlenbeckia complexa, and if you went to the zoo and you paid your ticket and you went straight ahead from the ticket office, there's an avenue of all different animals that have been made in wire and then grown the maidenhair creeper on and then trimmed into shapes. And you could see, that's a place where anybody could go and see maidenhair creeper, but it's something that was very, very common when I was a little kid, because it was a sort of a poor man's hedge, you know, like you had a scungy old wire fence, you'd grab a few suckers of Muehlenbeckia from a friend and you'd stick them in, and before you know it, the wire fence would turn into a lovely green hedge. And so it was a kind of a battler's hedge, and then it's been forgotten. And I've been sort of working hard to bring it back, because I think that because of its narrowness and its speed of growth, I think that it's a very, and I love the idea that you could actually create sculptures with it. And I've got the idea, I've done a couple of designs for people where we do a sculptural hedge, where the hedge might sort of wander like that, and then we put a window in it, or an arched doorway. So so the Muhlenbecker could be something, and you can Google and look at it, and people do all sorts of stuff with it, but you could do fences and hedges that were really very artistic and sculptural and interesting, and make really wonderful fantasy sort of gardens. And they grow so quickly that the type of framework that you need to support it, you could use sort of second-hand rubbish, really, and it would just swallow it up, and there you are.
Yeah.
But where I've often used it is where sometimes people have, quite a nice house, but a really scungy old steel fence or something there. And I say, look, and they haven't got the budget for a brand new fence, and you say, look, just grow Muhlenbecker on it, and it'll swallow the fence, and you can enjoy the hedge and not look at the fence anymore.
Yeah, perfect. And again, we do have really great videos about Muhlenbecker creeper, especially a really amazing hedge. If you want to go to our YouTube channel and search it up, you should be able to find that. Next question is going to be, do you have a soil testing service?
No, and we probably should. But no, we don't at the moment. We don't have a soil testing service. And,
maybe something to work on.
Yeah, but you can get yourself, they're quite cheap to get. Look, most of the soil testing I would do, I would look at the texture and that of the soil. And then what's really, really important and very much available to anybody is if you get yourself a pH test, you can check the pH. And then if you're looking up almost any plant, they can give you an idea of what sort of pH that plant likes. Or for instance, where a lot of people, there's a tremendous interest in hydrangea at the moment, and to get beautiful blues and purples and things like that, you need to be acidic, which is a low pH, or to get sort of reds and pinks and things like that, you need to be a high pH, which is an alkaline soil condition. So so getting a pH test is quite easy and cheap.
Yeah, amazing. Next one is, I've had a blueberry bush sadly drop most of its fruit. Any idea why that would happen?
Stress. Yeah.
What can they do for it?
My dad was real good at growing blueberries, and what I decided was that they want the same sort of conditions as the soil, the same soil conditions as an azalea. They don't want to be in the hot afternoon sun. They like a bit of a sheltered spot, a bit of dappled shade, they want the first half of the day sun and maybe not the second half of the day sun. And then they want deep, loamy soil, and you can achieve that by digging pine bark or something through it. But so basically, and then they like plenty of moisture, and they like good drainage. So they want similar conditions to what an azalea would thrive in, which is basically not too much hot afternoon sun, deep, loamy soil that they can sort of spread their roots through, and plenty of moisture. And then they like plenty of fertilizer, and it's fairly high nitrogen type fertilizers that they like. And given all of that, the tree, the bush would have the strength to support the berries and not lose them.
Amazing. All right, next question is, my dark purple heuchera, gets morning sun, but it's not growing.
Heucheras like beautiful soil. They like plenty of water and a little bit of fertilizer, a little bit of Osmocote or something like that. So, and they really don't like the hot afternoon sun.
Okay.
So
maybe you should threaten it to grow.
Yeah. The most important thing I've ever learned about horticulture, and a friend of mine who's a biologist said it to me when, I reckon maybe 35, 40 years ago, he said to me, he said, plants want to grow. He said, what you've got to do is let them grow.
Exactly.
And how you would let a plant grow is you remove any inhibitions to growth, which could be lack of water, too much sun, not enough sun, not enough nutrients, not enough of the right nutrients, not the right pH, too much shade, too much humidity. And so what you've got to do is you've got to understand what a particular plant wants. Like I remember, for instance, my dad was growing English beech from seed, and it took him many years to work out how to get the seed, how to grow it, and how to do it all. But his problem was to grow a beech tree about 20 centimetres tall was taking him 3 years. And we lived up at Mount Dandenong, and we had very acidic soil, and I think pH 5.5 or something like that. And then he read one day that in England, where the beeches grow wild, it's highly alkaline soil, it's just broken limestone. And he read that, and he said, I'm going to put on a big lot of lime. And he put on lime probably 1/4 of an inch thick over the whole field where he grew his beeches. And then he started growing them instead of taking 3 years to grow 20 centimetres, in 1 year he was getting a seed up to 25 centimetres. So they were growing at 4 or 5 times the speed with adequate pH. So that's an example of removing the obstacle where they weren't enjoying the acidic soil at Mount Dandenong, and by putting on, Dad would turn the paddock white before he planted his beech, and he would get really, really good growth.
Amazing. Next one's from Rick. What's the best way to prepare for garden design appointment with you?
What I enjoy, like I'm happy to be challenged. I'm really happy when I show people things and they say, look, I don't like that. So I think the most important thing, I like to have photos, I like to have measurements, and I like a person to have some idea of what they want. Now, you don't have to know that you want a golden elm in the middle of the front lawn. I'm going to work that out for you. What I want you to say is, I want to have beautiful shade. We've got a lot of hot afternoon sun there, and I want beautiful shade, or I want low maintenance. So knowing what you want is, and that you could drive around your neighbourhood, or you could drive to the next posh neighbourhood next door, or whatever. But if you look around at things and maybe even take a photo, and as you look around your neighbourhood, you might see things that you don't want, and you might see things that you do want. And knowing what you want is the single most important thing, because if a person can communicate to me exactly what they want, I can do it.
Exactly.
It's the person who can't communicate to me makes it really difficult to deliver the goods.
Yeah.
If they can't tell you what they want. So if you look around before the design, measurements and photos is all I want. Very simple. And we're not. It's not a high scientific sort of a thing. So you can say, look, it's 10 paces this way and 5 paces this way. So I don't need sort of super precise measurements, but I need measurements and photos, and then if you can kind of analyse what it is that you want, and even give me a little bit of an idea on budget, but understanding what you want is what's important.
Yeah, and we do have an article as well that's all about how to prepare for the garden design, and it goes really into detail. So if you do go over to our website and then Chris's blog and just search up garden design, that article should come up. Okay, next question is from Trevor. My Queensland bottle is in a tub. It's 4 years old and the trunk won't thicken.
It doesn't want to stay in the tub. And see, plants can even talk to you. It's saying, get me out of this bloody tub.
Can it go to a bigger tub, or does it have to just get out of the tub?
Actually, there's one that a place I visit regularly that's got one out the front, and it's growing in the garden, and boy, it's getting fatter and fatter by the, it's getting fatter faster than I am. And so I think there'd be nothing like getting it out in the garden and getting it going to really fatten it up.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting? A mate of mine grows bonsai, and what's valuable is a bonsai with a thick trunk that's kind of short. And what he does is that he doesn't want to wait 40 years to get a bonsai. So what he does is he's got a paddock, and he buys little skinny Japanese maples and he plants them in the paddock, and in 4 or 5 years they might grow 3 or 4 metres tall, and they'll get a nice thick trunk on them. And then he'll chop them back and he'll turn them into a bonsai. It might take him another couple of years of shaping and working, but basically at the end of 6 or 8 years he's got something that looks 50 years old.
Whoa.
And so and where trunk, so what he's doing is if he kept his little skinny maple in a pot, it would be little skinny maple in 5 years and 6 years and 7 years and 8 years, and he'd be 92 before he made a nice fat trunk. But because he can make a beautiful fat trunk in 3, 4, 5 years, and it's done by going in the ground, letting them spread, letting them grow like crazy. And then if you wanted to have one with a fat trunk in the pot, you put it in the garden, fatten it up for a couple of years, then dig it up and put it back in the pot, which is what my mate does with his bonsai. So you could do that with your bottle tree, or you can wait forever while it sits there and protests and quietly communicates that it doesn't want to fatten up in the pot.
Okay, amazing. Next one is my sweet viburnum is getting some brown spots on its leaves. It's in full sun and I planted it 3 weeks ago.
Okay. You know, somebody came in with that problem yesterday, and I've had that problem myself, and I believe that it's a lack of moisture, and it could be a lack of moisture down deep. Now, what I said to this customer that came in yesterday, he had big black spots on his viburnum, and I said, look, I want you to go home. I want you to dig down beside the root system, and I expect that you find that it's quite dry down deep, because that's what viburnums do when they're dried out. Rather than wilting, they just get big black spots on the leaves. Now, what you could do is you could increase your water, would be a good thing. Increasing the water would be a good thing, and perhaps to get the water in deeper, you might use soil wetter. Soil wetter is something that allows the water to really penetrate. So you might use soil wetter to get the water in deeper. And you might also use like a socket hose to get the water deeper, or you could use, if you use soil wetter and a socket hose, you're bound to get good penetration quickly.
Amazing. Next one is from Ken's Curls. Is putting a Boston Ivy in a pot 400 by 400 enough to grow as a base to make a green wall?
It depends how big the wall is, but I reckon you could, in a pot like that, if you watered and fertilised really well, it would be possible to get a 2 or 3 metre high one that's maybe 1.5 metres wide. Is what you'd achieve.
Yeah.
And where, like I did a garden design for somebody on the weekend, and what we did is we're going to put one of those pots every metre, and she'll end up with quite a big green wall quite quickly.
Yeah. And I got another Boston Ivy question from Jay. Can Boston Ivy climb on colour bond fence, or does it need any additional support?
We did a video. The one we did, we did a video recently. The one that was a big hit, that was growing on a colour bond fence. It was a low hedge that went up high, and we did it with Teo, and it was a very successful video. But what interested me about that is you couldn't see the steel fence, but I parted the foliage, and I was really interested. It was a very nice looking hedge. Parted the foliage and saw that it was just a colour bond fence.
Perfect.
And because I've often had the same question in my mind, and people have been asking me that, so I was very interested to see it thriving on a steel fence, and it certainly will. And there is a video. How would you find that video?
Go to YouTube and search up Boston Ivy, and all our Boston Ivy videos will come up, and then you just have to watch them to see which one it is.
This particular one was a low fence that then went up as it went down towards the garage, so it was low and went up like that. It was just your classic colour bond fence.
Yeah, perfect. Jen would like to know, is there anything I can do to counteract fluoride toxicity?
Interesting thing that. Is that I've never heard of fluoride. Like it's a sad thing that they put fluoride in the water. Like from what I've read up on it, it's some sort of industrial waste that comes from making aluminium, and it's actually supposed to have a dulling effect on the mind, and it's a sort of a toxic thing. It's supposed to help your teeth and dull your mind, and and it's kind of sad that it's in the water. But I've never had a problem with it with watering plants or growing plants with the fluoride. So or a problem that I could notice with fluoride. I'm not sure what effect it could have on a plant, but with humans, it's not really a very good thing. It's not a very good thing that the government's put it in there.
Michael just wants to say that you helped me a lot with my landscape business. Thanks heaps. That's really lovely.
Cool, thanks for that, Michael.
Next one is from Lily. My magnolia little gem is showing no signs of flowering.
Do you know, if you've got not just the magnolia, but if you've got any plant at all and you want it to flower, I've never failed by using Miracle Grow. Now, Miracle Grow is an American product, and it was designed by Americans to make their annuals flower. And what the Americans do is that they have their icy cold winter, and then they plant their annuals when it's over, and then they want to get a nice big flowering annual in no time, and because of the shortness of the season. And what they do is that they'll use a nitrogen-rich fertilizer, and they'll grow a nice big plant really quickly. And then, as soon as they've got a nice big established plant, they switch over to Miracle Grow. And Miracle Grow has got an almost toxic shock of phosphorus in it. It's very, very high in phosphorus. And what that does is it gives the plants a sort of a shock, and it makes them flower. And I've used it on all different sorts of plants to get them to flower and fruit, or flower and not fruit. And so Miracle Grow is a great thing to get things flowering, and then apart from that, just getting I've never seen a little gem that wouldn't flower, so just getting it up in size could help, but Miracle Grow would increase your probability of flowering, and it will increase your volume of flowering, and you have to apply it regularly.
Yeah. Well, we got multiple people asking about different store locations. So we got Phil asking when we're going to open a store on the peninsula again, and we also got Shane asking when are you coming back to Emerald. So it sounds like we've got a branch out of Campbellfield.
Do you know what we've got? I had a nurseryman in here today. A nurseryman who's been in the industry for many, many years. He came over with a Christmas gift for us for buying plants from him, and he was saying, and this is the best stock nursery he's ever been into. The best stock retail nursery, plant wise, we've got the biggest and best range. And I would be very, because of the and he said, I reckon you've got close to $1 million worth of plants at a wholesale value, which would be over $2 million worth of plants at a retail value. He said that's about what I reckon you got after you looked at the place. What I reckon you got sitting here. And the thing is that with a family business, I used to have 6 stores, and I never had a range that I was really proud of, and had people caring for them the way that I want. In this store here, I'm really happy because I always want more, so I'm not entirely satisfied, but I've got an incredible range of plants, and people come in and they ask for really obscure or weird things, and I walk over and I grab it off one of the shelves somewhere, and like say you wanted a weeping maple, we've got really big ones and really little ones and really cheap ones and things like that. So in this store here, I couldn't afford to put $2 million worth here and $2 million worth there. What tended to happen when I had 6 stores, you end up with sort of $150,000 here and $150,000 there. And I prefer now having a really big store. And what we do is that we've got our website, and I've got 6 vans on the road. And so it doesn't matter if you live in Warrnambool or you live in Tootgarook or whatever, you can shop here. And then what I want my customers to do when they really want to experience an incredible experience of just amazing stuff, and I've got people who come here every week, but when you want that amazing experience, you come here, and we're making it better and better all the time, and that's my goal. I have visions of how I can make this twice as good, but right now I don't think you'd find a better stock nursery with a bigger range. In terms of having different sizes of the one thing, and in terms of having all different things here, there's not a better stock nursery anywhere in Melbourne or Victoria.
Yeah.
And so and that's because I'm not all over the place, but I am all over the place in the sense of the website and the vans.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to wrap up in about 4 minutes, so I'm just going to see how many more questions we can get through. Next one is from Samford. Hi Chris, we are outside Brisbane on acreage and need help to redesign our garden of about 4,000 metres squared Oof, where do we start?
I reckon we start off by booking a 45-minute on Zoom, and we book a 45-minute on Zoom, we give it a whirl, and you might need to book a second one, but I reckon we can do it either on one or two. And often the really hard ones are the little, like I was just doing one before and it was tiny, and the woman's needs were complex and big on a tiny space, and we ran out of time on the 45, and I'm going to, after I finish this, I'm going to spend another 25-30 minutes finishing off her one, and often I'll find really big ones I actually do more easily, because for some reason it's easier. I'm not sure exactly why, but the little ones can be quite hard.
Interesting. All right, next question is, what is the best hedge plant to grow quickly?
Depending on what sort of hedge that you wanted, but say for instance, say you wanted a hedge that was somewhere between 50 centimetres and 2 metres, box leaf privet, really hard to beat. Grows like crazy, really tough. Can't remember the last time somebody came in and said, look, I bought 10 of those and they all died or anything like that. I just can't remember when that last happened. People, even when they try, they can't kill it. So box leaf privet, fairly economical to buy, plant 3 or 4 to the metre, and basically you could grow, if you planted some 6-inch pots right now, you could have them up a metre by winter.
Amazing.
And you could get a nice finish on them in another year, and you could have them up 2 metres by the following winter. So that's pretty quick for a hedge.
Yeah. Last question for today. Anthony says, love your videos. Can you recommend a fast growing vine / climbing plant? Only a few hours of sun per day in Melbourne.
What was that? I missed the word there.
Fast growing vine / climbing plant. Only a few hours day of sun.
Okay, do you know, it's a funny thing, most climbers really love the sun, and they've been designed to sort of rush up a tree and go all over the crown of the tree and kill it off, and that's what climbers do, or most climbers do, and so shade loving climbers are a little bit rare, and the best of them is your Chinese star jasmine. I've got it on the south side of my house, and there's a bit of a roof over it, and the sun never ever shines there, and they look fabulous.
Yeah, amazing.
They grow beautifully.
Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Sorry if we didn't get to your question today. We do run these lives every Monday, 12 p.m. We did have some technical difficulties, which is why we went a bit later today. But 12 p.m. on whatever platform you are on now, please come again and just get in early, and then you're guaranteed to have your question answered, because I just ask them to Chris in a chronological order. But of course, if you have any urgent questions or you can't make the live, just call us, come in store, email us, anything like that. We're more than happy to answer all your questions, and I hope the rest of your Monday is lovely.
Thank you.
In the morning sun, where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello, plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant, in every shade and room, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space, let your garden dreams glide. Personal touch with our garden design, free sessions to blend within your budget line. From hello, hello plant in every shed and room, for every heart and every hand. We've got something for you. Now everybody, let's say hello, 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 hello.